The GOP, the Republicans, the Christo-fascists are still trying to strip away women's rights. We didn't expect them to let up now, did we? All right, so this is out of Forbes, but this is being reported on in different outlets. GOP states are still trying to restrict abortion pill Mifepristone in court. Here's how. Republican attorneys general in Idaho, Kansas, and Missouri are seeking to restrict abortion drug Mifepristone through new legal routes after the Supreme Court shot a previous version of their lawsuit down in June. The attorneys general filed an amended complaint in federal court asking it to roll back the FDA's updates to its approval to Mifepristone, which made the drug available via telehealth through the mail. A part of the amended complaint that I want to bring out right now, this part, when data is examined in a way that reflects sensitivity to expected birth rates, we've been talking about birth rates, these estimates strikingly do not show evidence of an increase in births to teenagers aged 15 to 19, even in states with long driving distances, despite the fact that women, there are no women that are 15, those are girls. Women aged 15 to 19 are more responsive to driving distances to abortion facilities than older women. The study thus concludes that one explanation may be that younger women are more likely to navigate online abortion finders or websites ordering mail order medication to self-manage abortions. This study thus suggests that remote dispensing of abortion drugs by mail, common carrier, and interactive computer service is depressing expected birth rates for teenage mothers in plaintiff states, even if other overall birth rates may have been lowered than otherwise projected. They see that teenagers are not having as many babies, and they need to fix that. That is what this is all about, because teenagers can get what they need online or through telehealth services. So we can't have these birth rates continue to plummet. That is all this is about. All right, back to the article. The Supreme Court threw out a previous version of the lawsuit that was filed by doctors opposed to Mifepristone, ruling they didn't have standing. But the states argue they can bring the case because they have an interest in protecting their citizens, citing the practice of residents being prescribed or mailed the pills from out of state. Mifepristone is one of two drugs taken during a medication abortion, along with misoprostol, with states claiming the drug is dangerous, despite studies overwhelmingly showing the medication is broadly safe and effective at terminating a pregnancy. The attorneys general also asked that the court to rule that mailing pills is illegal under the Comstock Act. And y'all really need to know and understand what the Comstock Act is. A 19th century law that's laid dormant for decades that bans the mailing of anything related to abortion. It also was regulating birth control. Like literally people were getting jailed for sending out birth control or even information about how to control births. The 19th century was wild, and this is what they were using so that women couldn't get access to birth control, this law. The states asked the court to rescind updates made to Mifepristone's approval in 2016 and 2021, which, if rolled back, would mean the drug could only be prescribed and taken in person at a physician's office and would only be available through 7 weeks of pregnancy rather than 10, as is allowed. The FDA has not yet responded to a request for comment. What to watch for? The court has not yet ruled on whether it will accept the state's amended complaint, though the judge overseeing the case, U.S. District Judge Matthew Kacsmaryk, is a Trump appointee who is well known to be sympathetic to conservative causes and already outlawed Mifepristone the first time the lawsuit was brought. An appeals court then rolled back his order, ruling the drug should be restricted but not banned entirely. It's likely the updated litigation will be appealed and make its way through the court system as the initial version of it did, potentially giving the Supreme Court a second chance to consider Mifepristone's legality. Let's talk about the Comstock Act, how it relates to the GOP, why J.D. Vance's name is popping up, and Project 2025. So this article was back from July 2024. J.D. Vance and Project 2025 want to use this 19th century law to ban abortion without Congress. Republican politicians have tempered calls for a national abortion ban ahead of the November election. But vice presidential candidate Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio and the authors of the controversial Project 2025 are among those promoting another tactic former President Donald Trump could take to curb access to the procedure if elected, relying on a long dormant 19th century law known as the Comstock Act. The Comstock Act, originally passed in 1873, bans mailing of any, and this can be so wide-ranging, obscene, lewd, lascivious, indecent, filthy, or vile article, matter, thing, device, or substance, including every article or thing designed, adapted, or intended for producing smorgasbord, and anything which is advertised or described in a manner calculated to lead another to use or apply for producing smorgasbord. Court rulings since the law's passage have limited how the obscenity can be prosecuted and narrowed the scope of the statute. Because, like I said, all of this, who is like the person that's saying this is obscene, lewd, lascivious, indecent, filthy? Like, who is judging those qualifiers? With the Justice Department noting in December 2022 memo that it regards the law as now only applying to mailing things that would facilitate unlawful smorgasbords, and the act has laid dormant for decades, given that Roe v. Wade long legalized smorgasbord under the federal law. Since it hasn't been repealed, however, forced birthers have been seizing on the Comstock Act in the wake of the Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade in 2022, with Republican lawmakers writing in a court brief that it bars the mailing of smorgasbord pills and activists reportedly using it as a legal basis to draft plans for former President Donald Trump to ban smorgasbord if he should win re-election. They want to come after everybody nationally, even though he said repeatedly, oh, we've sent it back to the states. No. They are coming for women's rights all over the place, all over the country. Vance was among a group of GOP lawmakers who sent a letter to Attorney General Merrick Garland in January 2023, asking for him to enforce the Comstock Act and shut down all mail order smorgasbord operations, opposing the DOJ's December 22 memo that stated smorgasbord pills could be mailed under federal law, including to states where the procedure is banned. Policy proposals outlined in Project 2025, a sweeping policy blueprint for private right-wing organizations for the next conservative president to overhaul the executive branch, also calls for the DOJ to enforce the Comstock Act and to include the mailing of these pills. Please know and understand. Folks still want to come after Kamala Harris for this and come up after her for that. But what Republicans are doing in their game plan is so insidious, and it's long-reaching. It's long-reaching and very wide-reaching, the way they are trying to come for women's rights. So please know and understand all that goes along with Project 2025, and that this is bigger than just Trump or Kamala Harris. It's bigger than that. Whoever does get in the Oval Office will have the power of the pen. But the way these Republicans, Project 2025, these Christo-fascists are coming for women's rights in a long game, in a wide-ranging ways to strip women of their rights. All right, y'all. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think of these. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. So y'all know that I am on team let the birth rate plummet to hell. So I was sent this article a few different times. Australia's birth rate hits rock bottom with severe consequences for economic future. Team let it plummet to hell. Let's just go. There are warnings that Australia's birth rate, having hit a record low, is now at a critical level. Bureau of Statistics figures show that 286,998 births were registered in Australia in 2023, resulting in a total fertility rate of 1.5 babies per woman. That is a little bit less than America's. Australian National University demographer Liz Allen said the nation's birth rate is perilously low. We've hit rock bottom. The total fertility rate over the past 30 years has dropped from 1.86 in 93 to 1.5 in 2023. The birth rate for girls and women aged 15 to 19 has fallen by more than 2/3 over that period, which we are celebrating. We normal thinking women are celebrating this because girls age 15 to 19 don't have much money. So let it plummet to hell. All right, there's also been a decline for young ladies who are aged 20 to 24. Still, I'm still celebrating that because women that young still don't have very much money. So let's continue to let that number drop as well. And young people are unlikely to achieve their desired family size. And I'm not talking oodles and oodles of children. I'm talking a child, maybe a second one. On the flip side, the fertility rate of women aged 40 to 44 has almost doubled over the past 30 years, getting to a point of no return. What's so important about this particular number, 1.5, is that once we hit this figure, we are basically staring down the barrel of no return. Dr. Allen said the reason why dropping below a birth rate of 1.5 would make it so hard to come back up again was that having so few new babies coming through hampers economic growth, which in turn leads people to have even fewer babies. It's all about the money. Please have more money so we can get some more money flowing. I'm sorry, please have babies because they do see babies as money. Please have these babies so we can keep making money. She described a deep-seated attitudinal problem facing millions of younger Australians. Many, the demographer said, lack enthusiasm about the future, and that relates to their views on climate change, housing affordability, and gender equality. Once we hit ultra-low fertility, like, say, for example, countries in our region like South Korea, there is generally no return. Now, they need to stick on this point for a while. Climate change is important. That's going to impact food, the weather, the sustainability of the land that we live on. Housing affordability. Will we be able to house these children and ourselves? Gender equality. I mean, come on now. Women are facing femicide rates, violence, and all of that stuff. And women are saying, y'all, men need to pitch in with these kids and chores. But nobody is addressing these. It's just like literally a footnote. Okay, we are not going to see a baby boom of the likes of Australia's post-World War II period because we don't have the necessary ingredients for a baby boom. And women, we work, we have rights, and women are saying no. Effect on economic activity. Terry Ronsley is an urban economist at accounting firm KPMG. He agrees and describes the fertility of 1.5 as a dramatic number. If you look at the international data and you look at the countries who have slipped below 1.5, places like Italy, South Korea, Japan, and in those countries, you do start to have this demographic time bomb starting to go off. There's less and less workers being able to generate economic activity. People start to leave the country due to a lack of economic opportunities, and you do start to have a slippery slope towards a declining population. So the 1.5 is a place where we want to start having some real firm conversations about how we try to turn this number around, because I don't think we want to be pushing much below this in the longer term. What kind of conversations are you wanting to have? What are you talking about? Are you going to talk to women or what? As for solutions to a critically low fertility rate, Mr. Ronsley said Australia had dug itself out of fertility holes before. When you look at the drop off in the number of births, you have to go back to the early 70s to find a similar size. And that's during a period of very high inflation and increasing unemployment rate during the 70s. So there's a bit of a parallel towards that sort of 1970s drop off and what we're seeing 50 years later. Dr. Allen pointed the finger squarely at governments, both state and federal. Change the language, have leadership that really signals positivity for the future. But at the heart of it, four main areas: housing affordability, economic security, and that really comes down to job security, gender equality, and climate change, she said. Invest in those four policies. Official figures show the median birth age of mothers has now also risen to age 32. So please know and understand this whole gender equality piece is going to be big, but I don't know how you have policies that push for that when women are specifically asking for men to participate more in the household. How are you going to change the minds and the culture of men who think that all they have to do is go to work? All right, y'all. Are you on team let the birth rate plummet to hell, or are you on team let's have some babies or something. Join the conversation. Let me know. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. A lot of these countries are in their MFN find out season, and I am here for it. Until they start listening to women and treating women better globally, I'm team let the birth rate plummet to hell. This is coming out of Fortune. Europe's population crisis could shave 4% off its GDP by 2040. That's literally around the corner. Morgan Stanley warns, and the options to solve it aren't good. Europe's demographic challenges are becoming a ticking time bomb for the region's economy, with Morgan Stanley delivering a grim prediction for its effects on GDP. Morgan Stanley says Europe's aging population could shave 4% off the Eurozone GDP by 2040 as people live longer and the birth rates plummet to hell. The bank projects a significant loss in GDP based on predictions that Europe's working age population will shrink by 6.5% by 2040, thus lowering production output and tax revenues. Italy is expected to be the biggest victim of this decline, with an aging population knocking about 6% off the country's GDP over the next 15 years. France and Germany will also see sharp declines, though less than the EU average. In countries where hospitality is a bigger driver of the economy, the impacts on GDP are expected to be outsized as fewer people fill those roles, while an older population increases the tax burden. The only country set to expand thanks to shifting demographics is the UK, Morgan Stanley says. The country is expected to add 4 percentage points of GDP by stabilizing its working age population. Falling productivity, however, is expected to remain an issue for the UK. How to fix Europe's population crisis. The countries across the West are grappling with a steady decline in the working age population, a trend that has already been played out in countries like Japan and South Korea. It's increasingly becoming a hot topic of conversation in Europe's boardrooms. Morgan Stanley scoured more than 300,000 commentary transcripts to find that mentions of an aging population had experienced a sharp increase in recent years, with nearly 5% of C-suites bringing up the topic. The options available to policymakers to address growing anxiety over the demographic time bomb, however, don't look good. Morgan Stanley says there are 2 main ways to turn around falling populations. The most preferable option, a fresh baby boom, is unlikely to occur. Even if an effective policy existed to raise birth rates and could be implemented immediately, it would be more than 15 years before this policy impacted the labor force, hardly a short-term fix. The bank hypothesized whether a sudden uptick in birth rates in the 2000s, driven by the advent of IVF treatment, could be replicated now. While the fresh growth from IVF was a one-off, other policy implementations may help. The recent steps to expand childcare could act as a demographic measure, and high levels of net migration in recent years could provide some support to fertility rates. Hence, we think there is some scope for fertility rates to at least stop falling. So this part, we talk about the way immigration and migration are demonized, yet many of these countries, the United States as well, we're propped up by immigration, and that only goes so far. Eventually, some of these people that they're brown in traveling to these countries, they get demonized. After a while, the immigration situation is going to come to a halt, or at least slow down, because of the way these people are demonized. All right, it says, indeed, reforms to increase net migration are most likely the way to address a falling work age population and accordingly economic growth. Where are they going to keep importing these people from? The only places that are not seeing the birth rates tumble to hell are African countries. So are they going to start importing these dark-skinned people? We know a lot of these countries, they demonize them. And I'm not going to come out and just call them racist, but you know what I'm saying. The topic of immigration has flared up in Europe in recent years, with far-right anti-immigration parties gaining significant ground this year. like the National Rally in France and Alternative für Deutschland, AFD, in Germany. This has made it harder for governments to tout the benefits of immigration to voters. Exactly. I didn't even know this was coming. I didn't read through this whole thing. A much less palatable third option to save GDP, Morgan Stanley says, is for the remaining working age population to increase their working hours. Raising the retirement age is another option likely to be unpopular with voters. So they are not going to have any way to increase this money. So maybe some of these people that are just sitting on piles of money might have to actually distribute it so that people can live. I don't know. The most effective, while still realistic, combination is higher migration combined with increasing the female participation rate in the workforce, the bank says. This could address the current projected economic growth gap by increasing GDP by 4 percentage points. While fewer working age people might result in higher wages for the workers who remain, Morgan Stanley points out that the negative GDP effects of population decline will probably have a negative impact on earnings. The bank report lays out a grim set of obstacles for Europe in overcoming one of its biggest existential challenges in the coming decades. Doing nothing could be disastrous. Once again, I read through this whole article, and they are not addressing the real issues. And that means that they are going to remain in their find out season, and the birth rates will continue to plummet to hell because obviously they're still not listening to women because they are not addressing the things that women are saying. They're not addressing the violence because there is violence in these countries. They're not talking about how men are still allowed to not participate in the home, and it's cultural because these are patriarchal countries. They're not addressing, they mention childcare, but it's a bit too little too late because at this point, women are saying, get someone else to do it. And there's not a whole lot of women that are actively still participating as it currently stands. But anyways, you guys go ahead, join in the conversation. Are you on team let it plummet to hell? Or are you on team, yeah, let's have some babies or something? Join the conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.